Well, there's a lot of outlets reporting on the troubles that Zillow is having with their whole program where they went out and purchased, uh, you know, thousands, I guess, of homes in America and tried to flip them and resell them. As I talked about recently, Zillow has stopped buying these houses. They're not doing it anymore. They said because, oh, well, we're just so busy. We don't have time to do this anymore. We're just so successful that well, we can't do this business anymore, which, I called out at the time as total BS. If you have a successful business going, you don't stop doing it. The only reason why you stop doing it is because it's losing you money, which is obvious, as a lot of media outlets are reporting that Zillow is selling a majority in many cities across America of the properties it owns at a loss. Or actually selling is being a little too generous to Zillow. These properties aren't sold, they're just listed. And they're listed below what Zillow paid. And Zillow is still hoping somebody will come in and buy these homes at that lost price, but just so they can recover most of their losses. Zillow would rather lose 10 to 20% on a property than lose 100%. And I have to thank Reventure Consulting for specifically going over a little bit of a Business Insider article, which I won't link to here because you can't read it because it's for subscribers only, and I'm not giving money to Business Insider. I don't think they're that great of a website, but I guess Reventure is. So he was able to read it and get some more of the details. And that really was just that in a bunch of cities where Business Insider looked into all of the listings that are owned by Zillow. In some cases, I think Atlanta was 65%. You had, I think, over 80, or maybe it was in the 70s, real high percentage. In Dallas and in Phoenix, it was like 93%. And so I think the easy, or I shouldn't say easy, one conclusion you can draw from this is that this is a sign that the overall housing market is taking a turn for the worse, and Zillow is trying to get out of Dodge and recover as much capital as they can and limit their losses because they don't want to be left holding the bag now that they've amassed this massive portfolio of single-family homes. But honestly, what we're seeing, this behavior out of Zillow, is it's not necessarily indicative of a broader market collapse, although I would lean in that direction and saying that's true, but I want to play devil's advocate and just point out that Zillow's business model, even in a rising housing market, in a seller's market, what Zillow has done is not a good move. They were paying way too much for these properties. The idea was that Zillow was going to be flipping houses, but Zillow wasn't paying the prices that you would as a flipper. There was no room for profit margin in these prices that Zillow is paying, and they don't want to sit on these houses. They want to turn around and sell them immediately. And so they don't have time to wait for the price to go up. So how does Zillow get these houses? Well, they go in and they outbid all of the normal buyers. And so congratulations, Zillow, you paid, 5 to 10% more than anyone else would have for this house. Now you've got the house. Good luck trying to sell it for more than you paid, because you already way overpaid. And you could say, well, if we sit on it for, 6 months to a year, we'll be able, maybe prices will go up enough, you could speculate. The prices will rise enough to where we can make a profit. But it's not really worth it to them because that money's tied up for all that time. It's not enough profit. They're not making any money. And so this is, even if the broader housing market was not about to take a nosedive, Zillow's flipping model is just bad. And so I don't want to, jump up and down and celebrate and say, look, Zillow is having a fire sale. They're trying to dump all of the properties that they have bought up, over the last year or so, and they want them all gone because they know something's coming. That's not necessarily the case. I think it's just that Zillow can't afford to have all this money tied up. Who knows how much of that money that Zillow bought these houses with, was leverage. Zillow probably has got some interest payments that they need to make, and they don't want to sit on these houses because if it's not just that they're worried about the price going down. If prices stagnate and stay the same, Zillow is screwed because Zillow paid too much for these houses, and so Zillow needs prices to rise astronomically over a short period of time in order for their bets to pay off. So think about what Zillow did here as a leveraged long position. When you lever up and go long, that's not a long-term strategy because you've got carrying costs with all that leverage. You have to make payments. In the case of physical real estate, you have to pay property taxes. Zillow doesn't want to do all that. They don't want to pay these carrying costs to hold on to, this ridiculous portfolio of single-family homes. They need to turn around and get them sold. And so, even if the housing market in the United States was not on the brink of a collapse, let's just say that's not true for a second. I think that Zillow would still be forced to act in a similar fashion because, in my opinion, this business model is too crazy and deranged, even for the most crazy and deranged bull market in housing. I mean, this happens with this happened with the last housing cycle too. There were all of these businesses that sprung up that said, hey, we buy any house, we'll buy your house, we pay cash. There were these ads on the radio here for a few months locally, and I had to think for a minute what the guy's tagline was. I think it was, I buy 5 houses a week and I want to buy more. That's what these people would say. And they're just always talking about how we buy houses, we buy houses. Well, why are they buying houses? They buy houses for the same reason Zillow does, so they can turn around and sell them for more. And what happened to, of course, all of these businesses after prices peaked in 2006? Well, they all started to go out of business. They went belly up. Because they were speculating on housing prices, and they got it wrong. But those people would have been fine if housing prices kept going up or stagnated, because typically those kinds of businesses pay below market value. They are paying people, the reason why they're able to get money off is because they pay cash, and it's guaranteed, and you just call them up, and it's real fast, and they'll say, hey, I'll come over, I'll bring you a duffel bag full of money, and you hand me the title to your property. It's that simple. But like I said, Zillow is crazier than those guys. Zillow was paying basically above market value for these houses. And so it was a pretty small chance that they were actually going to make money off of all of this. And I think Zillow realizes that now. That's why they've stopped buying houses. I don't think that they will, if they ever go back to buying houses, even if this market, stays the same, they're going to do it the old-fashioned way and pay below asking price. It's just like if you go to a dealership and you trade in your car, you're never going to get as much money out of it as you would have if you tried to sell your car on Craigslist. So as much as I would like to think that this is the start of a broader trend, I will have to wait and see because, like I said, this Zillow situation is unique. And I want to see if this is going to be a broader trend. Now, actually, I should point out, Reventure does cite, in a couple of cases, houses where the Zillow estimate, and again, I've never been very confident in the Zillow estimate, but he's pointing out how the Zillow estimate for a lot of these properties that Zillow is selling at a loss are taking a nosedive, clearly, and showing, oh, hey, look up here, this was the peak when Zillow bought it, and now the prices are coming down very rapidly. One explanation for that is that when Zillow buys a house and they overpay for it, I wouldn't be shocked if Zillow's algorithm raises the Zillow estimate for those properties that Zillow buys to whatever price that Zillow paid for it, so that it doesn't look like Zillow paid too much and that Zillow can turn around and try and resell that and say, oh, look, here's this estimate. It's, it's worth, what we're asking for it, wink, wink. And then as that doesn't cut it, and other houses around that Zillow-owned house start to sell at lower prices, lower to what the actual market price is, the Zestimate gets drugged down. And so I think that in a lot of these neighborhoods, Zillow, by coming in and paying way too much for a house, temporarily raises the market price, because it's a comparable property. And if Zillow goes in and pays a bunch of money for it, it looks like, oh, well, these houses are worth more, until you find out that nobody other than Zillow is willing to pay that much. And so then values come back down. So again, I'm playing devil's advocate here because, well, I do want to get my hopes up. I want to be hopeful. I'd like to think that one day, housing will not be ridiculously unaffordable, and the population where I live will not be exploding at a rapid pace. It would be nice if we could get back to normal times, if we could get back to something like the 20th century where housing prices were stable. Heck, you used to be able to own your own home in the city where I live, working a minimum wage job. That's how out of whack things have gotten. Housing is not supposed to be ridiculously expensive. It's, one of the most basic needs of humanity. It's like food. We found a way to make food relatively inexpensive. Food is not a huge percentage of people's budgets. Now that's starting to change recently, but in general, in modern society, food is pretty plentiful. And so there's no real reason other than artificial distortions why housing is any different. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.